Hey everyone, I am back. So we'll move on to the section two of the intro to prenatal yoga teacher training. Sorry, I look kind of dead today. I mean, maybe I can put some light and make me look better. But I am recovering from a cold, so I've been teaching kids yoga at a summer camp and when kids go to school they always get sick, and so that has translated over to me and my family. So let's get right to it. We're going to talk about the safety precautions and guidelines when teaching prenatal yoga. I will say, and I will remind you guys, and I want you guys to remind your students that you are not a doctor. You are not a doctor. Unless you really are, then go ahead, do your doctor thing. But most of us that are teaching prenatal yoga are not doctors or midwives. So I will always tell you to stress that to your students, and you are just a mere guidance for them in the prenatal yoga practice. So before students come to your class, always have them consult with a doctor, their midwife, the person that's their main leader and knowledge person for their pregnancy, to see if they are okay to do prenatal yoga. Okay, so during classes, a lot of students will come up to you and ask you very specific questions about their bodies and their health conditions. Always have the confidence to say, I am not a doctor. I'm not a midwife. I am a yoga teacher. I've seen this and this. I've heard this and this, but always consult your healthcare provider. Okay. And you know, that would definitely make all your students respect you and know that, okay, this is not your area of expertise, and don't feel the pressure to have to diagnose them or give them advice that you're unsure of. Okay. But also, I would say develop a Rolodex of people that you trust and know that you can refer them over to for specific issues like pelvic floor issues or fertility issues, anything like that. Refer them out. Okay, second point, modify and adapt the pose. When you teach, there will be multiple different levels of students: beginner, people who've never done yoga before but they decided to do it now because they're pregnant, or people who've been doing yoga for their whole life. You as a yoga teacher, you need to be able to adapt the yoga poses for all those different levels, all those different body types. And during the course of this training, I will show you how students can adapt each pose for whatever they're feeling, and whatever they're not feeling that day, with props. Okay. Third, always stress throughout the whole class for students to listen to their body. This is the most opportune time for students to slow down, observe, listen to the body. And if that student that day is like, okay, my body says I need to do Shavasana all day, all you have to do is create space for them to do that if they want to do Shavasana the whole class. Yes, so always tell the students to honor their body, to honor how they're feeling that day, and reminding them that each trimester that they go to or each day that they wake up, they may feel like a whole new person. Um, First trimester is very different than second trimester. Second trimester is very different than third trimester. Third trimester is different than fourth trimester. I remember my first trimester, I felt sick most of the time. So doing anything rigorous made me feel like I wanted to throw up. So first trimester, I was still attending regular yoga, but I was not feeling 100%. So remind the students that to listen and honor their body at every stage, every day that they're going through their pregnancy. Fourth point. So as you move through pregnancy, you'll start to notice, or I mean your students, that they may get overheated. So unlike vinyasa or hot Pilates or hot yoga, do not turn the heat on in your class. Make it as cool as possible. I'm not saying turn the air down to like, I don't know, 50 degrees, but have it normal room temperature. Do not add any heat. And if the moms do feel cold, tell them to bring extra layers for Shavasana, bring a blanket, wear a sweater, but never add heat to the class because the temperature rising will also make the women feel more exhausted and hard to breathe. So especially if you have a hot yoga class before your yoga class, give a minute to air out the class or air out the room, and then allow your prenatal students to come in. Yeah, so that is especially transitioning in different yoga studios, especially if they have hot yoga, make sure you have at least 15 minutes to air out the room. Okay. Oh, also, second thing, talking about the ambiance of the room. Certain smells, things can cause women to be nauseous. So, if you usually do essential oils or you light incense or do Palo Santo before the class, I would not do that for prenatal yoga. I would try to keep the room as neutral as possible. I remember like meat made me feel super sick, and all I ate was cereal throughout my first trimester. So keep that in mind when creating the ambiance of the room. Okay, fifth, pelvic floor awareness. You'll be leading the students through pelvic floor awareness almost every class. But however, there will be some people who have some pelvic floor issues. So if they do have pelvic floor issues, they're still also like, of course, they're welcome to your class. But if they ask specifically, I would refer them out to a pelvic floor expert who can help advise them on pelvic floor. Okay, we'll go into that more in depth in the next section. Okay, and prenatal yoga, wherever you teach, make sure they have all the props. By all the props, I mean blanket, big bolster, blocks, 2 blocks for everybody, okay? And extra credit if that yoga studio has like those spongy little mats that people can put their knee on. You will use all the props in prenatal yoga. I will teach you specifically how to use the props later in other sections, but make sure you have all the equipment there for the students. All right, and then next section 7.7 is breath awareness. In class, make sure whatever pranayama, whatever breathing practice you're using with prenatal students, it's never a holding of the breath. Okay, it's never a holding of the breath. And that is because we have a baby, and baby needs all the oxygen it needs at all times. If anything, you're doing a breath practice that helps women breathe deeper, get as much air as they need. So no Viloma breath, no holding of nothing like our normal yoga practice, Kalabati, any of that. Don't do that. Okay, especially Kalabati. Kalabati is where I think it's like the breath of fire, where you're sucking in your stomach and pumping the air through your stomach. Don't do that with prenatal women, okay? Because the baby's in there. You don't want to cause too much disturbance. You want a nice, gentle breath. Okay, number 8. Remind students to communicate. If they're feeling dizzy, if they're feeling terrible, if they're feeling great, always ask your students for feedback. Maybe after sequence, you can just check in, turn around, or walk up and down the aisle when setting up the room, just being, how are you feeling? Everything good? Was the sequence okay for you? Shall we continue? Always check in, and also remind them to just, as you walk around, if they need to tell you something, encourage them to give you feedback on how they're feeling, especially throughout the class. Also remind the students that they're allowed to go to the restroom and pee whenever they need to. and also make easy access for them to use the restroom. Okay, and safety for inversions. So I usually do not do any inversions in my prenatal yoga class, but you'll have that one type A student that needs to do her headstand. I would say make the boundary for your class and say that if you would like to do an inversion, please do that at home before you come. Do not do that in my class. Okay. I would like to create a most safe environment as much as I can, especially uh, with a more high risk population where it's not just the mom, it's also the baby inside. So it could be something where the mom falls during headstand or handstand or forearm stand or anything like that, and maybe they fall accidentally on another mom. So you want to prevent any of that to happen. Make sure there's ample space in between each mom, especially with all the props. And I would personally say no inversions. But if you would like to do inversions in your class, you go ahead and do it. But there, make sure that you do have a liability form or something to protect yourself. But I personally would not do it. And I have experience with this, not in my class, but there was a court case that I was involved in where I was the expert on the panel. And what happened was a woman was doing handstand during Shavasana and landed on another student's wrist, and it broke her wrist. In that event, they had this whole court case where was it to was it to blame the teacher or was it to blame the student or whatever. To cut through all that drama, I would just cut out any inversion in prenatal yoga. But it's your class, you do you. But that's my advice. Okay, point 10, always integrate restorative poses towards the end of class. I will go into that, allowing the mom to rest. A lot of the work in pregnancy and having a baby is really within. So it's a lot going on that you may not see in front of your face, and you will remind the moms this, but there's a lot going on inside. So give yourself a moment to rest, give your moms a moment to rest. Do, I would say, at least three restorative poses or yin poses towards the end of class. Okay, then also incorporate and educate the women about prenatal health. Encourage them to drink tons of water. Always encourage them to communicate with their healthcare providers what's going on. Encourage them to have great nutrition. I know a lot of the moms, especially me, I had low iron, so I needed to take some iron supplements. So I'm not telling you guys to be a nutritionist for these people, but to encourage their moms to have proper nutrition, drink water during class, and take care. And let me see. Yeah, okay, and that's pretty much all the safety precautions, guidelines that I have for you today. But if you can think of anything, please feel free to leave a comment below. And always keep up to date in your education, always be up to date with the news, things that are related to prenatal women, and always take a moment to read up on those things, and then relay that in your classes, because new things are always changing, new things are always developing. I know now with my daughter, back in the day, they used to recommend kids to sleep on their tummy and not in a swaddle, or or they used to like give kids like alcohol for them to sleep. So those things are obviously outdated, and there's new studies coming up. So the point of all I'm just saying is that make sure that you keep up with all the new experiments, all the new updates, articles about prenatal health and prenatal women. All right, and that is it for today's training. And I will see you guys another day for the next section. All right, catch you later.